What is happening, everyone? Welcome back to G-Ball Vision. You know what time it is. Recently, I've had a lot of comments since my lock test video asking me to test different knives, test different locking systems. I've put out a community poll and asked if people would be interested in seeing such a thing. And between all the comments and the community post, the overwhelming majority of people want to see different price points tested, different locking systems. We have over 10 locking systems to test today. This is going to be a little bit longer of a video, so sit back and relax and let's find out these results together. Now, before we get started, a little information, a little disclaimer. People have asked how or in what way this would happen. There's no way to nail down exactly why one person is going to hit the spine of their knife and possibly have that close on their hand. It's an accidental occurrence. It's not something that is intentional. It's not something that is purposeful or on purpose. If you are cutting material below something that is very dense, you have the potential to cut something and accidentally come back out of that cut, hitting the spine of the knife on that denser material. And if the knife is susceptible to lock failure, you definitely have the potential of that to close on your hand. Or in any such situation where, you're cutting something or cutting a lot, say you're breaking down cardboard and your attention goes elsewhere for a moment, you can easily accidentally hit the back of the blade on something and have it close on your hand. There are all kinds of different occurrences and they are all going to be accidental. So sometimes those accidental occurrences are not really going to be explainable. If you watch and look in the comments, listen to other creators, it happens. It's happened to them. It's happened to me. Luckily, I was wearing gloves and the knife got pinched in the gloves there and I didn't end up getting cut. But it does happen. It has happened, and it will continue to happen. Now, this is not the be-all, end-all of test. This is not telling you that your knife is garbage. This is not saying my knives are garbage. This is merely for informational purposes, so that way we have just a little bit more information on the locking systems and how they perform. And of course, this is just my experience here and my own opinions. And what happens with my knives might not happen with your knives, and vice versa. So we'll get started with the Triad lock from Cold Steel. This is not going to have an issue. We usually start out with light taps up towards the tip, and then we do light taps towards the tang, and then we go to medium. Once it passes medium taps, I think we can call it good unless you really feel it slipping. Then, further testing could be introduced. But for the most part, if it can pass a medium test like that, there's no need to take it any further. The Triad lock will pass and it will be one of the strongest locking systems for a folding knife that you can have. Now, we do have two examples of a Triad lock here. That way we have at least two that we can go off of. So those are medium to hard taps all over the spine of that blade. There is no slipping, no issues. Now, let's go to the Scorpion lock that is found on the AD15. Also going to be very tough. I will not be introducing any force or pressure on these locks. This will be strictly what the lock is able to handle on its own. So medium to hard taps on the Scorpion lock, no problem at all for the Scorpion lock. How about Cold Steel's Atlas lock, which is similar to the Shark lock, which we will also be testing today? So some medium to hard taps on the Atlas lock, no issue at all for the Atlas lock. And while I have it sitting here, let's do a back lock. This is the Buck 112. This is like a $20 knife here. So even medium to hard wax on a back lock like this should pass. There are going to be instances where a back lock could definitely fail this test. Now, I have this knife out here. This is a steel frame lock, a Civivi GTC collab, the hypersonic. Now, this is a good example of it passing light testing. Well, not there. This was passing light testing all up and down the blade. But when I introduce very hard towards the tip, it sometimes will slip, but sometimes it won't. So that is right there is another instance of, is that an issue? Well, if it's hard enough and at the right spot on the spine of that blade, it could definitely prove to be an issue. In most instances, it is probably not going to be an issue for a knife like this, but the potential is there for that to slip, at least on this given version, this model right here. Let's get to the next one. So I wanted to bring out 6 locking mechanisms from the same company to kind of see what results we get. This is the original Civivi button lock Elementum. So that is definitely good enough to pass. Now, I do know that some of these will fail. Definitely good to go on that one. How about the Altus? Good to go on the Altus. How about the Cogent? The Cogent is good. I can't remember which one it was. It don't seem like any of these are doing it right now. But when I was doing my testing in the middle of summertime, I had 2 of these fail. I want to say it was the Cogent and the Chevalier. The Altus is failing there very lightly. So a very light tap on the spine, a very light tap towards the tang is definitely enough. Now, this is not going to be with every Altus. It's not going to be with every button lock. It's going to vary dependent on the knife, specifically each individual knife. So this is just for information purposes, guys. How about we do the crossbar lock from Hogue and Doug Ritter? So there is a slip of a crossbar lock, not something you would expect. So could that be from oil, debris? It could be. So sometimes it wants to slip and sometimes it doesn't. So now it is holding strong. Now, the variances and it's going to differ. It's going to be different for a lot of people. the outcomes are going to be different. How about another Hogue, the Deca? So the Deca is not showing any signs of slippage. How about the new crossbar lock from CJRB, the Hector? So we could get it to go there. This is brand new. So this has not had any break-in or anything like that. Could break-in change whether the lock is going to pass or fail? It definitely could. When I initially tested this knife out of box, it did not fail. So it failing right now is not something I was expecting. And guys, when it's at a particular spot, a particular way, that is going to be even less likely that it becomes an issue, but the issue is still possible. All of this is basically a way of saying, be careful with your knives. A majority of them are subject to possible lock failure. Even if the lock is ultra strong and 99% or 9 out of 10 times the knife lock is going to pass, like a given compression lock, you still want to be very careful. This should not fail and has never failed. I've never had a compression lock knife fail. So compression locks are going to be ultra strong, similar to a triad lock, a back lock. Now I have seen some people say that their back locks have failed via the, whacking the spine off something. So there's another instance of a compression lock passing. How about the ball bearing lock from Spyderco, the Manix 2? And that's what I love. One of the many things I love about Spyderco is they build knives for function. They don't build knives for form. They build knives that have strong locks. They build knives that have proper heat treats, proper edges, proper geometry on the blade and the lock, proper ergonomics. They just nail all the functionable aspects, and because they nail all of the function, then you have some form that follows with that function. Because everything is very well done, the form just follows the great function. So I wanted to test some cheap knives, some cheap liner locks. This is like a $15 Kesmo liner lock. So even hard wax, it's passing. So good job, Kesmo. They do a great job on their edges, and they do a great job on their ergonomics as well. How about something even cheaper? Here we have a $10 Kesmo. This is an assisted knife liner lock. Let's see how this one fares. So that one is going to fail. Now, these are brand new, out of the box, been flipped like 3 times. So, could that be because it needs broken in? Could very well be. Let's test some other knives. Next up, we have the USA-made Beast, the ZT-0562 Titanium, a Hinder design. Now, this one has not had a ton of use, a ton of open and closing. Let's see what we get. So a very light tap near the tip. And closer to the tang, we are good to go. So, well, so it's taking a pretty hard one closer towards the tang, but towards the tip at the right angle, at the right force, it is causing that hinderer to fail. How about another frame lock from Kubi? We have the S35 VN Atlas here. Easily closes. But up near the tang, solid as a rock. So, do with that information what you will. How about a brand new crossbar lock from O-Knife? So that boy is solid. How about the button compression lock from Vastid? Nice and solid. How about now what is like a $500 Liang Ma? Field Duty 3.5. This is a titanium liner lock. It's solid, which is kind of surprising. I was kind of expecting this one to fail. So the Liang Ma Field Duty passes. Now how about a Spartan Harsey? This is the 4-inch. Now I will disclose this has some sort of issue with the lock face meeting up with the blade already. It's an issue I need to send back to Spartan and have them fix. It just developed. So there is some slipping already, you know, and this has very minimal use. Let's see what happens. So even with that little bit of movement in there, this one is still passing. Now, I did test this one months back, and I did get it to slip. So, you know, you kind of do with that information what you will. So, it seems to be solid right now. How about another titanium frame lock from Kubi? This is the Veloce. Easy peasy. So there's two Kubis that quickly, you know, lightly So just by lightly bouncing it, you know, kind of imitating what would happen if you were to come out of a cut and come up into that material. That's precisely, you know, not precisely, but this is an occasion where, you know, and yes, you might be gripping the knife, but maybe you're not squeezing the piss out of it. And I'm not in the, you know, I don't have the proper camera angles or the gear on to test this. But I have tested just lightly holding the knives like this, not squeezing, But, just holding them as you would, 9 times out of 10 when you're cutting something, just kind of a light to medium grip on the knife. And I have demonstrated, off camera, these knives failing like this. Now, obviously, the more tension you put on there, the more you are giving the lock a chance, but you're also, destroying that lockup as well, the more you squeeze on this open frame lock. So it's really dependent, guys, on what you're doing with what knife. Are there frame locks that pass? Yeah, there are. Let's check out a couple more. How about the big, rough, tough Chavez 229 drop point? So there's a perfect instance of a frame lock that fails going to a frame lock that passes. And that's another point to be taken. If Chavez and Riot can do it with this frame lock, why can't Kubi do it with a couple of their frame locks? Why is it that Riot has exposed frame locks that pass and some that fail? I think it all comes down to attention to detail. And to say that proper tolerances and everything being the way it should be, I've heard the excuse that the action would be miserable. You wouldn't be able to move the lock bar over because everything would be so tight. Well, this one passes. Action seems pretty good to me. And lock bar seems to be pretty easy to move over. So I think that kind of defies your logic there as to proper geometry causing issues with action and moving that lock bar over. That is just plain wrong. So if you hear someone spewing that, they are 100% wrong. You can definitely get proper geometry, proper tolerances with solid lockup and still maintain great open and closing action as well as easy disengagement with that lock bar. So don't listen to anyone who says those kinds of things because they have no idea what they're talking about. How about the Shark Lock, the 80 20.5? I can feel it slipping. You hear that? But it's not breaking. So it does have a little bit of movement in there. But it is hanging strong and holding up good. Shark Lock passes. How about the big guy, the Kaiser Sheepdog XL? Liner lock. So that bad boy does pass. Nice and strong. And has great action, a great edge, great geometry with that tall cleaver. This is a slicing beast. How about CJRB and their button locks? Now I can say I have almost every button lock from CJRB. I have only gotten one to slip, and that was with very hard spine wax, and that was the Warncliffe Pyrite. Every single other CJRB button lock is absolutely solid. Very solid from CJRB. How about the king of button lock strength, the Hogue EX01? solid as a rock. Hogue does their button locks extremely well, along with their edges, heat treat, ergos. Hogue does a fantastic job on their line of knives. How about Benchmade crossbar locks? Pretty solid. I can say that earlier crossbar lock failing, the Hogue RSK, that was kind of a surprise. Typically, I think that's the only crossbar lock I've gotten to fail, other than that new CJRB, but like I said, that is brand new. Some of these have extended open and closing and use on them. So I hope that puts things in perspective, guys. It's a little bit more information out there. And like I said, these are my knives, my tests, and this doesn't mean everything that happened here today with each individual knife is going to happen with yours. I could have knives that pass, and you could have one that fails. We both could have ones that pass. We could both have ones that fail. It's going to be individual to each knife. The key thing here to take away from this is a majority of folding knife locks have the potential to fail. Will they all fail? No. Do they all fail? No. Are there locking mechanisms that pass, and in the same vein locking systems or that same locking system in a different knife that fails? Yes. We have button locks that are as strong as a triad lock, in a sense. But we also have button locks that with the lightest tap fail. So the grand scheme of things, there is a lot of information to digest, but I think at the end of the day, this all means use your knives with care. Be as careful as you can be when you are doing any type of cutting, especially if people are around. Definitely keep in mind that it is a possibility that when you are in a cut, if you put any upward force or any upward pressure on that spine, there's a possibility for a lock failure and damage to your hand. So let me know what you think down in the comments, guys. We have a lot more testing to do. We did a great big batch of knives today, a ton of different locking systems. Huge shout out to the Spine Whacker for taking all that abuse. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up before you head out. And if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. We have lots more stuff on the way. Love you guys. Peace out.